Max is... Hey, go ahead, whenever you're ready. Thank you, Max. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Niagara Falls. I'm Sue Frawley. It's my honor and privilege to be in your pulpit this morning. And so, as we get ready to move into worship, let us start with our land and social justice acknowledgement. The land that this church sits upon is land that was stewarded by the Haudenosaunee people. It is land that is considered sacred and holy, and it is our obligation and our duty to carry it as such. Unitarian Universalists are a social justice loving people. It's written into our values, it's part of our covenant with each other, and as such, we affirm and acknowledge that it is our duty to raise all voices, especially the marginalized voices in our society, to give them a full place at the table, a full voice, and a full membership in all equity. And now I call you to be present. Take a moment, switch off your cell phones, take in the beauty of our sanctuary. We have beautiful sunshine today. We haven't had such glorious sunshine in the sanctuary for quite a while. So that's a lovely sight to see as it comes through our windows. So just take a moment to center yourself, to be present, and to be ready to join together in our worship. Our opening words this morning come from the prayer of St. Francis in the adaptation of lyrics that was done by Sebastian Temple for hymns. These words: "Make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring you love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And where there's doubt, true faith in you." And so we will now do our chalice lighting. All is going to come. Huh? No, because I'm doing it later. That's just the opening words. Those are just the opening words. Don't worry. It'll show up. So I invite you to find our chalice lighting words in our order of service. And let's repeat them together, please. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, and to serve you, Spirit of freedom. Thank you, Wally. And now if you would find hymn 131 in your hymnals. Love will guide us. Patty's going to play it in for us, and I invite you to join in singing when we get there.
Has trod us, hope inside us, will lead the way.
is part of our custom, our legacy, and our rituals being together that we take time to share our joys, our sorrows, and our concerns in a soundbite manner, and to let everyone know what it is on our hearts and minds. It's been my ritual since October 7th, almost 2 years ago, to light a first candle for all the hostages in the world to be returned and for there to be peace on our globe. I invite you to come forward and share your joys, sorrows, and concerns.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is purely selfish, well, almost purely selfish, but I can't resist saying I have been executor for an estate that has gone on now for 4 years, and I have put in hundreds of hours regarding this disposition of this estate, and I must say at this point I went to the lawyer's office Friday, and at noon I signed a paper, and it is done.
Oh, good.
So, thank you.
Ah.
She is an amazing person. She lives in what I call assisted living place, but she has remained independent, and she's so much love because she's so positive. And so everyone there appreciates her. And so I am very, very happy that we are celebrating Pat's birthday today.
Well, mine's just a joy, rather simple. Just when I got up this morning and seeing all the sunshine and stuff, it was just a joy opening up all the windows in my house to let the sunshine in.
It's a good joy.
So last night was this really awesome event at my school called Jazz Night Out. And one of my new songs, Fish Out of Water, which just released, it's going to be on my new album as well, which will hopefully come out in the next 1-2 months. We finally got to play that song live with a full jazz band. So it was lots of fun, went really well.
Maybe we'll get a Sunday version someday. What do you think? Possibly.
Okay, just for something to be silly about. So these aren't them, but I finally went and picked up my new glasses this week. But the odd thing is, as soon as I take them off, I still can't see.
Does anyone else have anything that they would wish to share? Does anyone on Zoom have anything to share? I always forget about Zoom, but I remembered this morning. Okay. So for all the joys, the sorrows, those that have been expressed and those that are held in hearts and in minds, to all of these we give our best intentions and our best energy. We bless them, amen and a women. So our spiritual practice for April, the theme is about joy. Now, when we talk about channels of disruption, you might think, well, how does joy fit into that? But trust me, this abbreviated essay from an essayist named Jim Lockhart, and he writes about spiritual community. Hopefully that ties it in. It seemed to fit when I put it forth. These are Jim's words. We have all supported immoral systems to one degree or another. This is unavoidable regarding the way governments and other forms of organization are operated. The United States has been and continues to be party to any number of immoral policies and actions, given that each party's viewpoint casts a different moral lens. There is speak of the need to recognize that the people in such systems are rarely as immoral as the system. From this viewpoint, we have an opening to address those in systems that we oppose without demonizing them as people. Such demonization is seldom, if ever, a pathway to healing. We are in a time where there is great need to have a dialogue across belief systems. Those who are aware of the dynamics involved need to take the lead in paving the way for such dialogues to occur. An example of the kind of dialogue that can be started was illustrated on CNN when Van Jones hosted a show, The Messy Truth, where Jones, who was a Hillary Clinton supporter, spoke with a group of supporters of Mr. Donald Trump. It begins with a willingness to listen, and then the ability to apply the concept that people are not as immoral as the system, and that in so, opening the possibility of dialogue. We see often in social media shouting. It seems the only way that people think they can get out of dysfunction is through championing and enabling accountability and integrity, and in doing so in the loudest and strongest of ways. Of course, this also involves upsetting and disturbing some people who are either convinced that we have the moral high ground or who are in denial about their complicity in the immoral system. This is one way of thinking and being that cries out for sacred disruption to a new level of being in the world. Of course, the spiritual lesson here is that when we take on and develop new skills and abilities to heal our own house, we will become more effective. We will become a force for healing in the world. When we focus on things like the development of emotional and spiritual intelligence, and we hold one another accountable from that way of being, we will be transformed. And when we are transformed, we will express what we truly are, a mighty moving force for healing in this planet. These are the words of spiritual writer Jim Lockhart. And so we'll now take up our offertory, which goes to take care and serve the good works of this church. simple prayer of peace, commonly or falsely known as the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. It goes like this. Lord, make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, or to be loved as much to love with all my soul. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. We've heard that poem or prayer, depends on how one looks at it, in many different phases. And I wanted to get the time, oops, wrong way. There was a gentleman named Sebastian Temple who took that prayer and made it into the hymn called Make Me a Channel of Your Peace. He took the prayer, put it to a musical setting, and it has been widely attributed always to St. Francis of Assisi. But here's the interesting part about that. Those words never appear in St. Francis's writings. There is no existence anywhere that actual prayer in its totality, or even in some phrasing, was written by St. Francis. The prayer was widely published during World War I and World War II, and it has been used during times of war to encourage peace throughout the world. The text of the prayer is about transformation, the movement away from darkness to light, from despair to hope. And the words of this prayer have similarities to writings by the prophet Isaiah, who talks about negatives becoming positives, and that through transformative work, God heals. And because of its use in broadly inclusive language, the words of this peace prayer have been adopted by many religions throughout the world. But it begs the question, who wrote the St. Francis prayer? So the origins are not exactly known. However, entirely absent perhaps from St. Francis's writings, the prayer in its present form traces back to 1912. It was the first known occurrence, and it was in French, in a small spiritual magazine called La Clochette, meaning the little bell. It was published by a Catholic organization in Paris named La Ligue de la Sainte Messe, or the League of the Holy Mass. The real author, suspected by many, is the magazine's editor, Father Esther Bouquet. The horrors of the Great War gave the prayer special power and wide appeal. And by 1916, it was famous enough to merit reprinting on the front pages of the Vatican newspaper, L'Osservatore Romano, which is an official measure of standing. In business, when we use the word a channel of disruption, we refer to the introduction of new and often disruptive sales or distribution methods that challenge existing methods and potentially displace others. This can be driven by new technologies, evolving customer preferences, or competitive pressures. Channels of disruption, which is our sermon for today. In a spiritual context, channels of disruption generally refer to experiencing a sudden shift or change that disrupts the usual flow of life or spiritual practices. This disruption can be a temporary challenge, or it can also be a more profound spiritual awakening that forces one to reevaluate priorities and beliefs. Sounds a little bit like what used to be our sixth principle and is still included in our values of that individual search for truth and meaning in the world. And it can involve questioning established norms and beliefs. This kind of pairs with something called spiritual identity disruption. And this refers to a period of questioning or maybe a crisis within one's spiritual beliefs or identity, it can be very painful, but a necessary process of healing or growth. Some might even akin it to discernment. And certainly for those who are going into ministry, discernment is a big part that takes place. I was in it and I didn't even know it. Reverend Margaret O'Neill had me be involved in pastoral ministry lessons at Roswell Park with the idea that I was going to continue and help with lay ministry. Hello. And on the night we graduated from Roswell, and I knew, in fact, there's a picture my aunt took. There's just a look on my face, and I knew I was going to go to seminary. I knew I wanted to be a minister. And of course, the second person, after talking with my aunt, was Reverend Margaret. And I said this to her, she's like, "Of course it is, dear. You were in discernment this whole year." I was? I didn't understand that. But when I went to seminary and I talked with fellow seminarians, I began to understand that aspect of discernment and realizing that for some, that process comes from perhaps a disruption that takes place either in your spiritual identity or your spiritual understanding, or perhaps a grasping for something more or greater than where you're standing in the moment. And disruption certainly offers that. It can be unsettling, but it can be an opportunity for the personal growth and transformation. It can force individuals to confront challenges, reassess values, and ultimately emerge stronger and more aligned with your true self. It is, in essence, a channel of disruption, to be a catalyst for spiritual awakening, for a period of intense growth, and a reminder that life is not always smooth or predictable, but it is full of opportunities for profound change and discovery. So what exactly would spiritual disruption be then? It's when what you've believed or what you were taught about faith or spirituality collides with an opposing lived experience, which may include abuse, trauma, betrayal, or hypocrisy. This is different than moral injury, and we've heard moral injury before. I think I've spoken about it from this pulpit, particularly when we talk about those who've served in the military, and just of late, those who have worked in public service, such as first responders and educators, where sometimes when what you are asked to do falls outside where your moral circle is. Two different sort of things. One is voluntary, spiritual disruption. Moral injury is not. And it's important to understand that forced act that can come upon people. Both create disruption. Both can create channels. But one, especially in spiritual disruption, in using it with wisdom, allows us to create a channel that in its disruption, it creates peace. The prayer of St. Francis was what inspired me to come up with today's sermon. But I kept trying to think, how can I move that into these times that we are in? People wring their hands, they are concerned. Yes, I want to be peace, but at the same time I want to fight, I want to do something, I want to be active, I need to put energy into the world. But I want to do it in a way that stays with my moral base and doesn't put me into either spiritual disruption or creating a moral injury. Practical ways, spiritual disruption is just doing something that won't harm the world, but it will change or engage with the intention in its acts to make for good. The disruption is to activities or thoughts. It is never to harm or to other people. It is creating spaces and places where voices come together in community, in covenantal acts, which is a big part of what we are as Unitarian Universalists, and they speak. They speak either for those whose voices are being oppressed, or they speak so that in loud volume, those who are oppressing everyone hear and see them. The marches and walks that have been happening, those are channels of disruption. Every time we speak up or we say something where there is an aggression or a prejudice, a discrimination, violence, or a collective compiling of false narratives used to rally people through harmful thought or action. We are channels of disruption when we stand or side to that. Individually, collectively, communally, and worldwide, we can participate in actions of opposition to the hate, harm, and avarice that is eating our lives like a cancer. In so doing, we become those channels of disruption, disruptions of negative energy and acts, with our goal of being peace and harmony. We are stronger, more loving, more healthy when we disrupt to create channels that push against that which would kill us. It's just making the decision sometimes of how much you want to do. Even the smallest channel gains strength when it joins with others in a disruption of negative, in a disruption of harm, in a disruption of hate, because love will always continue to grow. And so now we come to talk back. And this is the time where I invite you to talk back on anything about today's service or its theme that has come to mind. You can challenge, question, speak as you like, so talk back. Yes, Peter. Sure. I mean, there's many ways it can be described. Oftentimes, the word discernment has usually come forward in talking in spiritual, but discernment can also be in academic, educational, and also business, in the sense of looking at information, data, experience, and making a determination about how those items then inform for the next movements for a person or for an organization.
Would you agree that those two uses of the word are really quite different?
They can, yes, they are different. Spiritual discernment and other worldly-ish discernment are very different.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure, thanks for asking that question.
I just wanted to say that it was a very appropriate sermon today since Pope Francis just passed away. And he tried his best to be a disruptor in the Catholic Church, which really needs it. And I'm not sure what his legacy will be. I guess we'll find out shortly when the smoke comes out the roof. But he
For those who don't know, when they elect a pope, white smoke comes out of the chimney. If they haven't elected after a vote, black smoke comes out, yes. We're hoping for white smoke soon.
So I hope that what he's worked so hard for will last.
Yes, I agree. Someday you're going to talk back, my son.
Probably all know that if you're have been confirmed as a Catholic, then you get to take on the name of your saint, and that Saint Francis was Pope Francis's chosen name, saint.
I didn't know that. I always wonder how popes choose their names. Interesting. Erica, is there anybody online that has a talk back or wants to say anything this morning? There's silence. Sorry, I just want to make sure there's an opportunity. Anyone else? Anything they want to share? Anything at all? Well, my thanks for those who have asked questions, who have shared thoughts, shared some history, and to everyone also, but the way we listen and look to each other as well, that intentional listening that I've talked about a lot since September. It's part of how we build and we connect as community. But again, this time also is a time that you minister to me, and for that I am grateful and very thankful. So I appreciate it. Appropriately, you'll find in your order of service, Patty and I had to do a little bit of work on this, because I thought for sure that the prayer of St. Francis was in our hymnal, and guess what? It isn't, at least not in our gray one.
And the weird thing is, I thought we had done it at one point here.
Yeah. I'll have to look at it, maybe the blue. I know, it was,
We're losing it.
and sometimes things come under different titles, so we did a little bit of research this week, but we wanted to be able to sing this song, so you will find a printout of the words in here, and Patty's going to play us into it, and then I invite you to sing along to the words.
Hey, Muglis! What are you doing here? You're late, but that's cool. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring your love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And where there's doubt, true faith in you. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there's despair in life, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, only light. And where there's sadness, ever joy. Oh, Master, grant that I may never seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned, in giving of ourselves that we receive, and in dying that we're born to eternal life.
Thank you, Patty, and thank you for printing that out so everyone can see the words and sing to them. It is announcements time. If anyone has any announcements for the good of the congregation or the community, please do share.
I have one just reminder that the annual meeting is May 18th, right after service. And I also believe Linda Stryker was going to be giving a presentation after today, but I haven't seen her. Maybe she'll come during coffee hour, but I thought that was a presentation today. We'll find out.
Any other announcements?
Just a quickie. And this, I kept thinking I probably should do this other times, but hadn't. These microphones are battery operated, and there's a little switch here. You know, we use them to do all our things, and people get up and use them, and that's all good. And usually it turns out okay, but sometimes it doesn't. And on those occasions, somebody might forget to the little switch to be pushed up in order for people on Zoom to hear you, and also to get the extra sound in the sanctuary. So just so you know, the cradle for this mic we use for Joys and Concerns is right down there. And if you don't push the little switch up, the thing doesn't work. And if you don't push the little switch down, the battery goes dead. So practical advice. Hope it helps. Thank you. Sorry for any interruption.
And we also have Francie on Zoom who wants to say something.
Yeah, I'm happy for technology to be attending the Pacific Southwest Service Area Assembly in San Diego this weekend on Zoom. So it was really special. We paid a lot of tribute to our Camp de Benneville director, Janet James. So that was really nice to see that. Also, I just want to put a thing in about St. Francis. I'm really glad St. Francis didn't write that prayer. I always thought that was a little bit off. I think of St. Francis as sort of an eccentric, out of the box, away from the box kind of guy. And it just didn't seem right. Well, I'm glad that's cleared up. That's it.
Go ahead.
Hi. First, I wanted to remind everybody that today after potluck is the third lecture in the Religious Liberty series. And I wanted to mention that once again, I fell. What? Yeah, I did it again. Now, a habit of falling tends to lead to fractured hips, which may or may not lead to hip replacements, but often lead to being bedridden, which generally runs to being gone in a year or two. So I'm once again happy to report that I still don't have any kind of osteoporosis. In 2019, I tested having 35-year-old bone density. In 2021, my doctor noted I lost a little, didn't discuss the percentage with me, but said she was perfectly happy with my downward progress. And since last fall, Memorial has repeatedly refused to let me get my follow-up third scan because the scheduling office insists that I need a diagnosis of osteoporosis to get the screening test for osteoporosis. My doctor won't sign off on that because she said, we don't know if you have it. I won't say you have it if I don't know. The whole point of the test is to find out how you're doing. And let's see, don't want to forget. I want to report that this past week I got all the classes I wanted for the fall with no wait list or anything, and got a tentative early approval on part of a longer process to create my own major, because for 2 degrees there's 2 majors. The MDiv, I get the Unitarian Universalist Studies major. So I asked for the other masters to do a church and state major, so I can do more research in that area into the sort of things that I've been lecturing on and go into more detail. Last thing, completely irrelevant probably to what everybody's been talking about, but so I can be lazy and not have to look for a piece of paper and get my pen out and then write it twice, one for each side of the table. The chicken wings that I just brought directly from Sammy's Pizzeria, hot and fresh, are honey butter wings rolled in brown sugar and cinnamon. They're dessert wings. And optionally, in other words, it's not on the wings, but is set aside for you to dip if you want to, is chocolate sauce.
Wow.
So I tried these earlier in the week, and I was amazed. I concluded that if you like Cinnabons, or you like sweet and sour chicken, or honey wings, you're going to love this.
Sounds good. Are there any other announcements that anyone wishes to share? I know that announcement about the wings kind of tops everything. That was good. All right, I'll go quick so you can all get down there and get to them. And so, our benediction for today: be a channel, be a lane, be a stop sign, be a small stone that stubs the toe of an oppressor. Be whatever you can to keep love foremost and hate away from all. And we will extinguish our chalice. Ollie? Take it. And while Wally extinguishes our chalice, let us read the words. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Max, you have a song for us? Yes. All right.
This is on? Okay. So this is a song I wrote, oh my God, almost 2 years ago. But I was about to go to Greece, and this was when all those fires were happening. And I felt I should write this song. Kind of, I don't know, I just felt really moved, and I wrote this. And I feel like it kind of goes with the whole channels of disruption thing. There's a fire in Greece. Watch it burn through olive trees. Disturbing what was peace. Frolic in the grove till I meet you there. I harvest many flowers to put in your hair. The wind blows us down the hill, the sun holds its glare. The bumblebees hover as we feast on our pears. The birds have taken flight. The blood moon will glow tonight. Some will flee and some will stay and fight. The sky is turning red. The weak left for dead. These are the thoughts that plague my weary head. You're my sunny day. Nothing left to say. I love too much. I'm losing.